Straight talk from Israel. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Can U.S. President Donald Trump still keep the White House? Well, the media has already said that Joe Biden has won the elections. They've already started calling him the president-elect, and he's already starting to build his cabinet and the people that are surrounding him, giving them figuring out who's going to have what job. But one rabbi says that he's jumping ahead because this rabbi that I'm going to be having on my show today says that Jewish sources allude to the winning of the U.S. presidency again by Donald Trump. He states that Vice President Joe Biden's temporary glory will soon come crashing down. And that, yes, indeed, in the end, Donald Trump will win the election. Wow. I am very, very curious as to how he believes this, what sources from our sages and from the Torah and from the Tanakh, the Bible, that he's going to bring forth in order to prove his point. He has a video actually on YouTube that has gone viral, and if I can, I will try to link that video to the page where this show is podcasted so you can watch it yourself. It's not long. It's around 10 minutes or so, and it is just fascinating. So this is good news for Trump supporters and not good news for Biden supporters. However, people who predict things sometimes get things wrong. And then it will again be back to the reality that President Trump will have to will have to concede and vacate the White House, and it will indeed be a win for Joe Biden. So we are all waiting to hear what the rabbi has to say about this. Very, very interesting stuff coming up on the show, and I hope that you will share it with other people, especially Trump supporters. I think it will be something very optimistic for them in this time. We're going to be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Tamar Yonah Show here on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
How did a nice Jewish girl from Delaware end up living in Israel? Shalom, I'm Natalie Sapinski. Join me on my show, Returning Home. Meet different people who have moved to Israel. Hear their personal stories, their highs, their lows, and everything in between. Each week, we talk to experts on immigration and the process of moving to Israel. Listen to Returning Home every Thursday, only on Israel News Talk Radio.
All right, we are here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and we are talking about the results of the U.S. elections. Most Americans are pretty certain that Joe Biden has won the election, and they're already calling him the president-elect. He's already putting together a cabinet, and ignoring the other side that the president has not conceded. And he is, in fact, trying to get the votes recounted. He says that there was fraud, which could be true. And he's willing to take it all the way up to the Supreme Court. So is there still a chance for Donald Trump to remain as the president of the United States when so many have discounted him and are already looking to a post-Trump world? Well, my next guest, Rabbi Isser Weisberg, is going to tell us that, in fact, Trump is going to win these elections, and he bases it on the Torah and on the Tanakh, on the Bible. Rabbi Isser Weisberg is an educator. He has served for many years as a communal rabbi and as a teacher of Judaic studies. He's widely known for his expertise on end-time prophecies and Jewish eschatology. And he posts short lectures on YouTube, and his latest is called A Bump in Trump's Road to Victory. And it has gone viral. And in this video, he states, again, that Vice President Joe Biden's temporary glory will soon come crushing down, or come crashing down, I should say. And here to tell us more about this, I'd like to introduce to you all Rabbi Isser Weisberg. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So your video, you say that Trump is in the end going to win the election. And my first question to you is, aren't you afraid of making predictions? Because if you're wrong, people may laugh at you or possibly even laugh at religion. So what will you do if you're wrong?
I'm assuming most people are intelligent enough to realize that I'm a human being like everybody else. I could make mistakes. When I say I'm very confident about predictions, it's like, you go to a doctor. Actually, I went a few days to my dentist, and he took an x-ray and he said, you have a dead nerve and I have to do a root canal. And I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I'm a dentist for 40 years and I'm sure. I didn't ask him, well, are you a prophet? Do you speak to God? Because obviously he's telling me based on all his experience and all his expertise and his knowledge, he's confident that he obviously can make a mistake. I actually went to another dentist to get a second opinion, and the other one said he's wrong. So obviously, I think people are intelligent enough. I don't claim I'm a prophet. I don't speak to God. But I did do an enormous amount of research. I've been studying this biblical prophecies for over 30 years. And I worked really hard to put together. The picture is very complex. There are prophecies, hundreds of prophecies, really. If you take the prophecies in the Bible and in the books of Chazal, like in the Talmud and the Medrash, the Zohar, so there are hundreds of them, and it's confusing. A lot of them look like they contradict each other. But I worked hard and I put together the puzzle. And in the past, my predictions were correct. So I predicted the last three elections, and it seems to me just that I got it right. So I'm pretty confident that I got this one right too. So when I say I'm sure, basically, I'm saying from a human perspective, based on, I have confidence, that I figured it out. But obviously, I could be wrong, and everybody knows I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, so I'm wrong.
Okay, and so you predicted the last three elections. You predicted Obama, and Trump over Hillary.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. And when you predicted Trump was going to win Hillary, did you get a lot of flack for that? Did a lot of scoffing?
I got a lot. I mean, I didn't post YouTube videos, but I did do a lot of public speaking in a lot of places. A lot of people thought that it was crazy at that time. No one thought it was. They thought it was a joke. I mean, he's coming out of nowhere. He has no experience, and she had a massive political machine behind her. And everybody was saying that you don't know what you're talking about. But I, based on learning the prophecies and seeing what has to be accomplished, it was clear to me that Trump has to win, because there's a lot of things that he has to accomplish, and obviously Hillary was going in the same direction as Obama. I mean, the same thing was with Obama. I knew. Well, I guess based on my understanding of the prophecies, I knew that America would attack Jerusalem, and because the prophecies specifically talk about the superpower of the world in the books of the prophecies called Gog, from the king of Magog, in the book of Yecheskel, Ezekiel chapter 38, and I knew from other sources that he would be the leader of the superpower of the world, which was America, and it said there would be an attack against Jerusalem. And the first term, he was very antagonistic to Israel. But he didn't actually attack Jerusalem. So I knew he would have to do that in his second term. And actually, he almost finished the second term, and it was at the end of 2016, after he was basically a lame duck then. And I just knew that something has to happen. And right before, if you remember, right at the end in December in 2016, he encouraged the UN to pass a resolution stating that the Jews have no right to Jerusalem. And that was his attack that was destined to be, that was prophesied in the book of Yechezkel so many years ago. But I just knew it had to happen, and he was the one that was going to do it. He was going in that direction. So when it comes to Trump, there are a lot of things that he accomplished in his first term, but he didn't finish the job. He's still in the middle.
Okay, let me ask you this. So are you saying that Obama was Gog, that we learn about in the Bible?
Yeah, definitely, because the sages say that Gog is a fictitious name. The Gog from the king of Magog is actually, the word Gog of Magog has the numeric value of 70, and the sages say that Gog is the leader and the superpower that dominates the 70 nations of the world. So it doesn't point out America, but you just have to put two and two together. I mean, who is the superpower? Russia is no longer considered a superpower; it's only the United States. So Gog from the king of Magog had to be the leader. And it says over there that together with an alliance of other nations and support from other nations, he's going to attack Jerusalem. So a lot of times, the prophets speak in metaphors. That's another difficult thing people have interpreting prophecies. The prophets, when they say words, but a lot of times they're speaking in metaphors. When it talks about a great war with a lot of military might and artillery, etc., it doesn't necessarily mean that, because Obama used his political might and his influence in the world to attack Israel and to bolster this narrative that the Jews stole the land from the Palestinians. And even though the UN is not a powerful body militarily, but it does have a strong voice in the world to create narratives and false narratives. And Obama putting the whole weight of the United States behind a UN resolution stating clearly that Israel does not belong to the Jewish people, and neither does Jerusalem or the Temple Mount, is a very powerful warring statement that has a lot of negative effects in the world. So that was the fulfillment of that prophecy, even though if you would read the prophecy, it doesn't sound like that's the way it's going to unfold, but that's the way it actually did.
I think that most people do imagine a scenario where there would be a military occupation of the city of trying to take over Jerusalem, and that there would be troops, and then we hear about things that sound like an atomic bomb with people who are standing on their feet while their eyes are melting in their sockets. So what about all of that?
Like I just said, the words of the prophets, very often they're metaphors. They don't really mean literally what they're saying. And a lot of times there's different possible interpretations which the prophets leave open, and they may unfold in various ways. So, for example, like the classic example is the prophecy that was told to Yonah, your namesake, that in 30 days the city of Nineveh will be overturned. And that had two meanings. It could be literally, it would be turned upside down like the cities of Sodom and Amorah in the Bible, that God literally picked them physically up and turned them upside down and destroyed them.
Right.
And that would be the case if they wouldn't do tshuva, if they wouldn't repent from their sins. And the second meaning was that in 30 days Nineveh will be turned over in a sense that they will change their ways. They will do tshuva. They will completely reverse their bad ways, and that's also metaphorically what turned over means. So God gave a prophecy to Yonah which could have been fulfilled in two ways. So a lot of these prophecies, depending on when they would have been fulfilled, a lot of things were up in the air. As far as the coming of Mashiach, there are a lot of possible scenarios. Mashiach could have come many times in our history. It depends. Like the Gemara says, even though there's a set date when he has to come, but it's very possible he would come before that time. And then scenarios might have been different. So it is possible, that the prophet left things open, but it could also be fulfilled in metaphorically without actual war.
Right. And I think another good example of a metaphor is when they talk about the Jewish people being gathered from the four corners of the earth and being brought back to Israel on the wings of eagles. That would be airplanes today, obviously. And when our prophets had these visions, they probably had never seen anything like this before, and that's how they would describe an airplane, it would seem to me. Very, very interesting what you're saying. So we're going to be going to a break in just another minute, but when we get back, I want to ask you about when this turnover of the elections is supposed to happen. We have Hanukkah, the holiday of Hanukkah coming up soon, which is the holiday of miracles. And so I'm wondering if it's going to happen around that time. I'm going to ask you that. And also to tell us how you believe it's going to happen and what may be the repercussions. In other words, I don't imagine the Democrats are going to take this lying down. So maybe you have something about that you can comment on. Anyway, don't go anywhere, everybody. We're going to be right back.
Shalom, everybody. Making a difference often takes just one moment and one person at a time. I am Orly Benny Davis, your show host on Israel News Talk Radios from Jerusalem with love. You'll be hearing people talking about politics, religion, social issues, and making a better tomorrow. Join me, Orly Benny Davis, for God and Country. From Jerusalem with love.
Wednesdays on Israel News Talk Radio.
Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Did you know this psalm and many others were composed by a Jewish shepherd and musician who later became a king? Would you like to know some of the inner meanings of psalms to help you connect with God and strengthen your soul? An exciting and easy-to-read book is now available which will help you do just that. Software for the Soul, Psalms for Everyone, available on Kindle, Audible, and Amazon.com. Software for the Soul.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and my guest is Rabbi Isser Weisberg. He's an educator, and he is an expert on end-time prophecies and Jewish eschatology. He has a video that went out on YouTube saying that Donald Trump, in the end, will win the U.S. elections. Wow, that video has been going viral, and he's here telling us about that. So, Rabbi, welcome back to the show. Good to have you on with us. And so when is this supposed to happen? We have the holiday of Hanukkah that's coming up, and it's known as the holiday of miracles. Is that when this turnover is going to happen, or before, after? What do you say?
To be honest, I don't really know. I could just tell you that, from the prophecies, it seems clear that Trump is in the middle of the job. He still has a lot to accomplish. He accomplished an enormous amount in many different ways for America and for Israel. But the job is half done. So I know he's going to get back to power. Exactly when and how. I mentioned in a video that it would make sense. Hanukkah is coming up, and Hanukkah is a miraculous time for us. As we say in the Alanisim, Rabbi Ben Maatim, miraculously, a small army was overpowering the mighty Greek army. And we say, Tameim B'Yatahirim, those that are impure were overpowered by those that are pure. And really, this is a war, as I mentioned in one of the videos about Biden. He's representing an ideology. It's not him as a person. It's really what he represents and what his movement represents. And it's a very, very, anti-Torah, anti-God, and very destructive ideology that basically is rejecting the main purpose of the world was that, goodness and kindness and holiness be the objective of mankind, to raise families, men and women get married, they have children, they educate them to be God-fearing people and live moral lives. And this whole movement is trying to destroy that. You don't have to get married, you don't even have to be a man, you don't have to be a woman, it doesn't matter, decide. They don't really care. They pose themselves as if they care about everybody, and they care about freedom, and they care about minorities. They don't really care about that. It's very, very destructive. It's very anti-God, it's very anti-Torah, and that's the movement that he represents. And Hanukkah is really the victory of Tameim B'Yat Tahirim and Zaydim B'Yat Oskei Sorosech. It says those that were against the Torah were overpowered by those that represent and fought for the Torah, which was the Maccabees. So it's a very opportune time, and it happens to be that in the middle of Hanukkah is when the electors actually cast their vote. That's really till now, nothing's really official and nothing's legal. People are just Normally, it happens, that electors follow the majority of the vote, but they don't really have to. There's a lot of legal pathways for Donald Trump to take it over. It doesn't seem that likely, but there are definitely paths for that. And Hanukkah would be a very opportune time for it to happen. But like I said, I don't really know for sure. What I could say is with a lot of confidence that it seems clear from all the prophecies that Donald Trump will be in the White House for another 4 years.
All right, and we also know that Hanukkah is the holiday of light winning over the darkness, and that's on the spiritual level of society as well. But let me ask you now about the sources that you use. What do you see that it says, in which books, which sages of ours say these things that make you come to believe that Trump is going to win?
Well, there are many sources that indicate that at the end of days are the enemies that the spiritual enemies that have tried to prevent the Jews from fulfilling our mission from the time of the destruction of the second temple are, the prophets talk about them as being from the progeny of Esav, the Edom, Esav. And there are prophecies that says that at the end of days, we know that Isaac wanted to bless Esav, and Esav was actually Jewish. His mother was Jewish. His mother Rebecca, and he was Yaakov's twin brother. And Isaac, the father, Yitzchak, was so much wanted them to work together as brothers. In his lifetime, Esav did not really act like a brother, and Rivka knew that, and that's why she had Yaakov steal the blessings. But in their heart, as parents, obviously they both wanted, and Isaac really so much prayed that they should work together. And there are prophecies that says that at the end of days, V'rav Yavod So'ir, that's what it said. That was the bracha that eventually Isaac did give Esav after Yaakov took the other blessing, and he said that eventually that the older one, Esav, is going to work together and serve the younger one, meaning that he will help the younger one. He will help the Jews accomplish their mission. He will support the Jews. He will protect the Jews. It happened a brief moment in their lifetimes when Yaakov met Esav when he was going back to visit his father in Israel. And that Yaakov gave him a lot of gifts, and he bowed down to him, and they hugged each other. And at that moment, Esav felt that he's no longer Yaakov's enemy, and he offered him. He said, "Can I walk with you to protect you? You're going, and traveling in Israel, and there was bandits then and robbers." And he offered to help him and be like a true older brother and help his younger brother and protect him. At that point, Yaakov said, "We're not ready yet." But Rashi says, one day. I will join you. Adash Yavi El Adoni Seira, and Rashi says over there that at the end of days they will be rejoined. The two brothers will be rejoined. So we know that Esav at the end of days before Mashiach comes is going to support Israel, and it's obvious. You have to be blind not to see that Donald Trump has fulfilled that. He's been the most supportive and Jew-loving president in our history. He's done so much, even in America, to fight anti-Semitism, to help the Jewish people. And for Israel, he's been phenomenal. But he didn't finish the job. Just proclaiming Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and the Golan is not really the whole job, because there is still, and that's what looks. This is like a little scare also for Trump, because, God forbid, if Biden would have won, I don't think he did, and he won't. But if he would have, then he would reverse the very first day. He would reverse a lot of the accomplishments. Some of the things you can't reverse. There are over 200 conservative judges that are appointed for life. The 3 conservative judges in the Supreme Court, important for life. There's no president who could overturn that.
But he threatened to pack the Supreme Court.
What?
I'm just saying he threatened to pack the Supreme Court, and that would throw votes.
That's you're right. That's also a possibility. But as far as Israel and Iran, Biden vowed to change that the very first day. He's going to embrace Iran, call them up, and say, "Let's get back to the deal that Obama negotiated," which we know is a terrible threat for Israel.
Right.
And he said, basically, he said, "That's what I'm going to do on my first day." He said he's going to embrace the Palestinians, start giving them funds so they could pay the families of terrorists again. Reinstate, bring them back to Trump closed down their office in Washington. He's going to open it again. He's going to embrace them, and he's going to push the narrative, that false narrative, that the Jews have to make concessions to the Palestinians and allow that to be, there's a Gaza on one side of Israel and that they should have another one on the other side. And this is a very, very dangerous thing which could be reversed very, very quickly. So Trump has to do a job that's irreversible, to embrace that to completely bury that false narrative, because they're still talking about a peace plan and and dividing the West Bank and making the sovereignty thing is not really the solution. It's sovereignty over some settlements, put them in as neighbors to within a Palestinian state would be extremely dangerous. So that's not a good thing. That whole thing has to be wiped out. That whole peace plan. Trump has to say the truth, just like he calls out the fake media and the fake narratives of the left. He has to say that narrative that the fictitious nation of the Palestinians deserve a 22nd Islamic Arabic state in the Middle East is false. They're not a people. They don't deserve anything. And the land of Israel was promised to the Jewish people from river to river, and it's theirs, and every inch of it is theirs, and whole Jerusalem is theirs, not just part of it. So he's halfway. I mean, he in that wasn't completed. And with Iran, the sanctions, they weakened Iran, but in no way is Iran stopping its march towards a nuclear weapon that could put the danger of God forbid, of over 6 billion Jews in danger. So that is not complete. I mean, he's doing his best but he's going to have to completely crush Iran and destroy their nuclear capabilities, because these sanctions could easily be reversed by someone else that was given to him to protect Israel as the older brother of Yaakov, now working together and trying to help his brother, is in the middle. He still hasn't completed that job. He must complete that job. And that's why I'm confident that he'll be given the opportunity to do that.
And what do you think is going to happen if indeed he does win? Do you see anything in any sources in the Torah where it talks about chaos in America? I mean, again, the Democrats are not going to take this sitting down. They're going to. I shouldn't say they're going to, but there's a good chance they may burn down cities again like they were doing before, but on a worse scale, because they just won't accept this. Not my president, as they say.
Listen, Trump is no pushover, and he's not going to let that happen. He's going to send in the army. He's going to send in the National Guard. He's going to ensure he's not going to let these lefty governors allow Black Lives Matter and these other radical lefties destroy people's stores and lives. In general, they portrayed him, the left, as he's a bully and he wants control. He doesn't really like that. He likes to give control to the states. He doesn't like to overreach his power. He doesn't like to interfere when he doesn't have to. Even with the pandemic, where they attacked him as if he's doing nothing, that wasn't true at all. Being the person that he is, that he doesn't like power and he likes to give power to the people and to the states, he encouraged every governor to do what they feel is right to control it. And he said, I'm there to help you, to facilitate it, to help you. He provided an enormous amount of help. To New York, for example, he sent an enormous amount of ventilators and other equipment, and he built 2 hospitals for him to help him. He sent him a hospital ship. He's there to help, but he doesn't want to control.
All right, so you're saying that he'll use the National Guard, the military, whatever he needs to quell any violence that can happen.
He's not going to let America burn. If the governors and the mayors, the Democratic mayors, allow that to happen, he's going to take control. He is able to. He doesn't like to. He doesn't like to use his might. He's not an Esav now that likes to fight, but he has a lot of strength, and he built up the military not to kill people, but to deter war. He doesn't like war. He doesn't like to see people die, but he will use all the power that he has to protect America. He loves America.
Okay, hold it right there. We have to go to a break. We're going to be right back.
You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
This is Shai Ben-Tekoa, and each week I'll be webcasting to you from Judea, origin of the word Jew, a people besieged and beleaguered in every generation. Nazi Germany's but a memory, but in its place the world invented the phantom Palestinians as this generation's internationally authorized Jew killers. Tune in for a different slant on life in Israel, Phantom Nation, every Monday.
Hi, I'm Rabbi David Aaron. The soul basics are the most profound, the most essential, and yet often the most neglected in our education. Join me for Soul Talk on Israel's News Talk Radio and discover the secrets to love, spiritual growth, and personal power.
All right, we're back here at the Tamar Yonah Show on IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com, and our guest is Rabbi Isser Weisberg, and he is an expert on Jewish eschatology, and he is here talking about one of his videos that went viral, and the name of the video is, let me see if I can find it here, A Bump in Trump's Road to Victory. And it states that Vice President Joe Biden's temporary glory will soon come crashing down. And this is fascinating stuff. And if it's gonna have to happen, I guess, within the next month or so, because already in January they have to already inaugurate a new president or the same president. And Rabbi, I wanted to ask you that you're saying that Trump is going to win because he, according to our sources, he has a job to do, and that is to strengthen Israel, to walk with his brother Jacob or Yaakov, and to bring help bring the world towards redemption. What happens after the next 4 years if Trump does win? He's going to have to leave because they only have a 2-term president. What's going to happen then?
Well, Mashiach is going to come, and not necessarily after the 4 years. There are things that Trump has to accomplish before Mashiach comes, and as soon as he does that, the path will be open for Mashiach to come. So that's what we're hoping. In one of the videos I posted, I calculated exactly when Mashiach has to come by. Now, again, I have to repeat again, it's so obvious, but I'm just a person like everybody else. I'm just trying to figure things out. Obviously, I could be wrong. I'm not a prophet. I don't claim to have any revelation. So it's not that God told me, but the numbers are there. And the time of the end was given to Daniel. It's in the book of Daniel several times. And God told Daniel, I'm giving you numbers, but you don't understand what they are. And I'm not giving you the keys to decipher the codes, but he told him that at the end of days, before the Mashiach comes, the keys will be out there and people will be able to decipher it. And the Zohar actually says, in the book of Bereshit, the Zohar actually says...
Bereshit is Genesis.
Genesis, yeah. So the Zohar is the primary book of Kabbalah, of Kabbalistic teachings in Judaism. And it says over there, predicted that the keys to unravel the codes in the book of Daniel will not necessarily be given to the sages of Israel, but even simple people will have access to those keys. So that's why even I'm not a great sage, and surely I don't have any divine inspiration. But the Zohar actually, the Holy Zohar predicts that simple people will have those keys. So that's why we have access to them now. So nobody was able to figure out those codes, and I believe I cracked the code. And according to that, you could look into the video. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the show, but the video is available. And it says over there that there was a time frame starting in 1982. There's two numbers at the very end of Daniel, the last verses in Daniel. And one of them says that the end time starts 1290 years from a time when some abomination and some disgraceful thing was placed on the Temple Mount. It doesn't say what it is. And it says that the time frame will last for 45 years. That's the window. From 1290 till 1335 years after that disgrace was placed on the Temple Mount, the Messiah will come in that time frame. So nobody knew really what that was. So, some assumed, like the early commentators, Rashi, the Ramban, the ones that lived in the 10th, 11th, 12th century, they assumed that after the temple was destroyed, so Hadrian was built a temple for the Roman god Jupiter on the Temple Mount. So that's obviously a disgraceful thing on the site of our holy Rabbi is the Beit HaMikdash. You build a temple to the pagan god of Rome, but they assumed that would be that we counted 1290 years from then, but then the Messiah would have came in the 14th century, and he didn't. So obviously the prophet was referring to something else that they didn't know of, and what I suggested, and I'm certain that it's talking about the Dome of the Rock that was built by the Muslims, and it was completed in the year 692. So when you count 1290 years, you get to 1982, and the 1335 ends in 2027. So that's the window when the Mashiach has to come, and we're getting very close to the end. There's also a tradition.
Wait, let me stop you for a moment, Rabbi. So you're saying that within the next 7 years, basically, the Messiah has to make his arrival.
Correct, but it doesn't mean that we have to wait those 7 years. That was the window, and it's very unlikely that we'll have to wait till the very end. There's actually a promise that God gives the prophet Isaiah, Yeshaya, at the end of chapter 60, that he says, Ani Hashem be'ito achishena, I am God, and I will make sure that the Messiah comes before the very end. So God is promising he's not going to wait till the very last moment. And I don't think he means that he's going to wait, till a day before the end. That would be an empty promise. So God is saying it's sometime before the very end that I'm going to bring the Messiah. So it's sometime before 2027. So it doesn't give us a lot of time. And that's why, I believe that whatever has to be accomplished before Mashiach comes has to be done through President Trump. There's no time for somebody else, because a lot of people ask me, so maybe Biden will be president, and then we'll have another president after him, like Trump, or Trump will come back or whatever, and then he'll finish the job. But there's not enough time for that. There's also another prophecy which is important, is that the Talmud says we have a tradition that the Messiah is going to come in the year after the Shemitah, the seventh sabbatical year, and that's a tradition. Again, it's not set in stone, but it's a tradition that we have, and that means so the next year. So now we're in the Jewish year of 5,781. 82 is going to be a sabbatical year, a Shemitah year in Israel, and 83 is the year after, and that's when we have a tradition that the Messiah is going to appear. Now, again, obviously, it can happen earlier. It's not set in stone, but I don't think it could happen later. So, again, I don't know for sure. I'm just sharing with you traditions. But the deadline of 2027 is set in stone based, again, on my understanding, which, of course, I could be wrong, but it seems like I'm not, because there's no other interpretation of those prophecies. So, like I'm saying, Trump, there's not a lot of time for these things to happen. Iran, there's a prophecy in the Talmud, in the tractate Yonah, page 10, that before the Messiah comes, that Edom, which is Esav, which is America, will crush the Persians, Iran. And crush doesn't just mean sanctions. Iran isn't by no means crushed. They're going full speed ahead and producing a nuclear weapon. They have to be crushed. They have to be completely crushed to the sense that there's absolutely no possibility of them. I don't think it can happen unless through a military attack, where all their facilities, and America does have the capabilities, they have the bunker buster bombs, they are capable of destroying every nuclear facility. And Trump, in his second term, when he sees that all the sanctions don't work, he's going to have to move ahead, and he's going to be afraid that if he doesn't do it, no one else is going to do it, and they're going to put Israel and the world in danger. So I think, in the second term, he is going to militarily have to destroy them. Maybe he could do it another way, by all means, if he could do it another way without that, I don't know, but it doesn't seem like it's feasible at this point. But he definitely has to get to that goal of crushing, completely eradicating Iran's arrogance. They still think they could take over the world and the Middle East and the whole world. They're incredibly arrogant people, and he thinks he could negotiate with them. He doesn't realize how difficult it is, and he's going to realize that in a second term, and he's going to be much tougher. I think he's actually going to have to go ahead and physically destroy their nuclear facilities. So these things have to happen, and like I said, there's not a lot of time for them to happen. So we can't say, well, it's not going to happen now, it'll happen later. Time is really running out. Mashiach is really on his way, and he's about to, and these things have to happen first.
Rabbi, we only have another 2 minutes left, and I want to ask you, so if you're saying that he has to come within the next 7 years, according to the Tanakh, according to the Bible, do you have an idea who the Mashiach, the Messiah, is?
No, I do not.
You don't have any suspicions it might be this person, or are you leaning towards one or the other? And you don't have to say if you don't want to, but do you have any? No.
You're probably referring to the opinion of a lot of Hasidim of the Lubavitcher Rebbe who believe that it will be him. But as I speak in another video, actually it's very interesting. People don't know this, but Judaism actually predicts there's going to be two messiahs. One is called Mashiach ben Yosef, and one is called Mashiach ben David. And Mashiach ben Yosef comes, and he prepares the way for Mashiach ben David. So I believe that the Lubavitcher Rebbe was the first Mashiach. He was Mashiach ben Yosef. Actually, his father-in-law and his mentor's name was Yosef. And, he really worked really hard. He encouraged the people in the last years of his life to prepare for Mashiach. He said it's very, very close. There's not a lot of time. The way we prepare for Mashiach is by, learning more Torah, doing more mitzvahs, doing more good deeds, more goodness and kindness.
Right. Rabbi, I need you to speed it up because we only have a minute. Go ahead. And then Mashiach ben David, the son of David?
The Messiah, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was, I think, the first Mashiach. Whether he's the second, there are sources that say that it's the same soul, basically. So the Messiah comes twice. And the first time he's called Mashiach ben Yosef. It could be he'll come back and he'll finish the job, or it could be the same soul will come back in another body and it will be another person sharing the same spiritual soul and source of the Rebbe. So I don't know. I don't have no clue who Mashiach ben David is. There definitely is a possibility it might be the Rebbe. There's a possibility it'll be somebody else.
Are you a Chabad rabbi?
It does not matter. What?
Are you a Chabad rabbi?
I'm a Chabad rabbi, but I don't represent Chabad, and my views are my own, so I don't want anyone to think that I'm an official spokesman for Chabad, and I really don't know. The main thing is, Tamar, is that it makes no difference, whoever he is. He's going to be a great person, and the whole world will embrace him. So it really is silly even to speculate.
All right. Well, listen, Rabbi Weisberg, this has been so refreshing and so inspiring to hear you. I do hope that you're right. I would hate to see the Iranian deal come back. I would hate to see the two-state solution come back and all these policies that Biden wants to put in. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. I must have you back. Please say you'll come back on the show.
God willing.
Okay, God willing, that's good enough for me. All right, and if anybody wants to follow his videos, I urge you to do so. You can go to his YouTube channel and look for Rabbi Isser Z. Weisberg, and we will try to link to that video on our page where the show is podcasted. Thank you so much, Rabbi, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everybody, as well. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to write me, Tamar, Tamar, at IsraelNewsTalkRadio.com.
Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. Just click the orange button at the top of the IsraelNewsTalkRadio.home page, log in as yourself or an anonymous guest, and join in on the fun. You'll meet other listeners from all over the world who listen to Israel News Talk Radio, and you can make new friends. Israel News Talk Radio's chat room. It's the closest you can get to being in the studio with us.
We love listening to Israel News Talk Radio.
Where can you get the inside news on Israel? At Israel News Talk Radio, we're dedicated to sharing Israel's inside story with the world by providing our listeners with news on Israeli politics, current affairs, and Israeli Jewish culture. The Israel News Talk Radio homepage also provides you, the listener, with useful information at your fingertips, with scrolling news headlines, weather, currency exchange, Shabbat candlelighting times, and so much more. Our radio programming is always accessible and on demand. We operate absolutely free of charge for everyone, everywhere. If you love what we do, partner with us now by becoming an Israel News Talk Radio supporter. With your support, you'll be inscribed on our Israel News Talk Radio Wall of Fame. There's nothing like us in the world. Be part of something great. Israel News Talk Radio. Straight talk from Israel.
If you love Israel News Talk Radio, then you'll love our Facebook page. We keep you up to date on what's happening in Israel, plus little surprise treasures that we don't share on the radio. Go now to follow us on Facebook. Just look for the Israel News Talk Radio Facebook page, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us by clicking on the like button. We post great stuff there that you'll want to share. Israel News Talk Radio on Facebook and Israel News Radio on Twitter.
News, opinion, and more. You're listening to Israel News Talk Radio.